Collingwood for allowing us into their space. This is gorgeous. All of you are gorgeous. I love it. So before we start today's events, we're going to start with a land acknowledgement. I think it's incredibly important to acknowledge our history, where we are, and to, respect the land that we're on, because it's part of our community too. So it's my honor to introduce Lex Sines, who is a mixed-race artist and activist originally from the Cheyenne Butte Territories, also known as Denver, in Colorado, and resides today in Tonga Territory, where we stand, known as what many call Los Angeles. A graduate of California Institute of the Arts with a BFA in dance and choreography. She also performed last night, I heard. She has worked for over 20 years as a dancer, teacher, and choreographer, collaborating with artists like Justin Bieber, Christina Aguilera, and Kanye West. Alongside her career in entertainment, she has also been deeply involved in nonprofit and Indigenous-led activism, consulting and advocating for justice. So if you could please welcome Lex.
Hello. Thank you so much, Christina, for inviting me here and for also creating a space for land acknowledgement, because it's so important to acknowledge the people of the lands that we are on. So, we honor the ancestors of the village of Yonga, now called Los Angeles, and we honor their living descendants, the people of Tonga. The Tonga people are still here today and are thriving. We honor them, past, present, and future, as there have been many generations surviving settler colonization, land seizure, disease, subjugation, slavery, relocation, broken promises, genocide, and multi-generational trauma. Their resilience lives. They are the stewards of the land, and they are a part of our vibrant community. We are grateful for their teachings and in respecting the lands, waters, elements, animals, and all life. We are grateful for the knowledge keepers, the elders who have passed down many teachings. We are taught reciprocity by Mother Earth, but these communities are the ones that hold the heart of the land in their hands. To them, to know them is to know the land. No matter where you go, honor the first people of the land you are on, because they have been here and will always be here. May we continue to build relationships with one another in good ways and by being a good relative while keeping in mind that reciprocity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lex. That was so beautiful and important. I want to invite everybody, if you would like to move forward. I know these seats all say reserved. We are going to reserve the seats for those with disabilities who need that. But the front two rows in the row, feel free to move up, get comfy if you would like. Now is your moment as I introduce myself. So thank you again for being here. My name is Rosalie Jamie Delfino Montoya. You can just call me Rose if you prefer. And I'm what the kids would say is a multi-hyphenate. I do a lot of different things. I'm a writer, I'm an actor, I'm an online content creator, an educator, an advocate. I'm trans, I'm Latina, and I also happen to be bisexual, which is what brings me here today. As I'm sure many of y'all may or may not be, I'm not going to assume. But I'm also really excited because I am deeply connected to many of the individuals on this stage, some of my friends, some of my colleagues, and I also have had the honor of being a Rewrite the BiLine Fellow. So it's basically a cohort of writers coming together to change the world and make it a better place for marginalized individuals, especially those who are bi. So very excited. I want to tell you a little bit more about Rewrite the BiLine, which is the reason that we're all here. So they are working to rewrite the narrative on bi+ people and non-nuclear families in film, television, and the media through script-to-screen consulting, public education, and investment in BI+ voices in order to create lasting social and political change. So on behalf of Rewrite the BiLine and the City of West Hollywood, I want to welcome you to tonight's celebration and panel discussion coming very soon. So tonight we're going to celebrate BI+ narratives in film and television. We're going to screen a short film, and you're going to hear from some of the leaders in our local community reshaping BI narratives on and off of the screen. What do we mean by BI+? Some of you may assume or be asking, and why do we use that term? We use the term BI+ to include anyone who has the capacity to experience attraction to more than one gender, or who are on the multiple attraction spectrum, including myself. So some people also call this M-spec for short. This includes people who identify as bisexual, pansexual, omnisexual, fluorosexual, biromantic, fluid, queer, another label, or no label at all. You're all welcome. This is a safe space for all. The BI+ community is consistently overlooked on screen, on stage, and in the media. I think most of us know this. When BI+ people are portrayed in film and television, the characters are often very harmful tropes. In traditional news media, Rewrite the BiLine has found that less than 7% of LGBTQ+ news coverage in the last 30 years is of BI+ people and issues, and rarely reflects the lived experience of those of us who are BI+. So the stigma that BI+ people have faced on screen has contributed to the pervasive discrimination and erasure that happens off screen every day. So, a few facts. Bi people are paid less than gay, lesbian, and straight people. Bi people have higher rates of poverty and experienced anxiety at much higher rates than gay, lesbian, and straight people. Over 60% of BI+ women have been raped, assaulted, or stalked. Nearly half of BI+ men will experience sexual violence in their lifetimes as well. Yet, we are vastly under-supported and represented. According to funders for LGBTQ+ issues, less than 1% of all domestic grant dollars awarded to LGBTQ+ communities and issues actually go towards BI+ communities and to BI+ issues. In the most recent year, for which they have statistics, BI+ programming across the entire country received less than, anybody got a guess on a number? Less than $100,000. That's nothing. Less than $100,000 for all BI+ programming nationwide. Part of this is because BI+ people are so often invisibilized. We are the invisible majority, making up nearly 60% of the entirety of the LGBTQ+ community. So Rewrite the BiLine is working to change that. If you want to help more BI+ writers like myself tell authentic stories, then please consider giving to Rewrite the BiLine, which you can easily do by scanning one of these QR codes. The one above me, you can donate. It would mean a lot. This is a free event, $1, $5, $100. We accept it all. And if you would just like to learn more about Rewrite the BiLine, the QR code to my left to your right is there for you. So please go ahead and take a look at that. Follow us there. They're great, I promise. It's worth your time. The event tonight was fully volunteer-led, and I would like to thank Christina Fiallo, my friend and the founder and the president of Rewrite the BiLine, who organized this whole event tonight. Thank you so much. I love you. We all love you. I also want to thank all of our volunteers, including our production team. Thank you to Erin Hammersley, to Taylor McDonald, and to Suzanne Losey. Thank you all so much. I want to also thank the City of West Hollywood for providing this beautiful space for all of us to gather, and for co-sponsoring tonight's panel with a special shout out to Moy Marquez for their support. Yes, 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 all the time. next speaker. I would like to invite Mayor Chelsea Lee Byers of the City of West Hollywood to share a few opening words. If you don't know, Mayor Chelsea Lee Byers is our wonderful mayor and a champion for the BI+ community. She was elected to the West Hollywood City Council in 2022. On the council, she prioritizes social service delivery, climate change, mitigation strategies, affordable housing, safer streets for pedestrians and cyclists, and ensuring that the City of West Hollywood is an inclusive community for all, and for diverse families, for immigrants, for Latinos. The list goes on and on and on. I've written about her. She's amazing, so without any further ado.
Well, good evening and welcome to West Hollywood and happy Bi Visibility Week to all who recognize. My name is Chelsea Byers, proud to serve as mayor of this incredible city, West Hollywood, and I'm bi. So I have to say that as an act of recognition and visibility, but I really appreciate the opportunity to stand here at this event and have such an important conversation this week in the city. I think the timing is sort of incredible that we're in this moment of recognizing the way that media is on the, I wouldn't say front line necessarily, but in this moment, a real visible place where the rise of authoritarianism is taking deep hold. And I think it is no surprise that the work of writers, of artists, of creatives is deeply under attack. It is the front line of free speech in this country. And I think the way we have come to understand unique identities, diverse communities, and the experiences of diverse peoples from the comfort of our own living room in so many ways. Watching these shows, hearing these stories, understanding the lives of people as they're communicated on screens through media, right now especially feels like something that is deeply radical and under attack in very viscerally clear ways. The capitulation from bosses, from companies, studio heads in this moment of time is very clear. And while this work feels like it's closing down, it feels like the community around it is more important than ever. And so you all joining this room, especially in a week like we're experiencing in this country, is a choice, but it's a real act of courage and a real act of commitment to, I think, what the work West Hollywood has been deeply committed to upholding, but the work we all have to extend across this region and across this country. So what Rewrite the BiLine is doing is just so deeply important. I mean, thank you so much, not just for doing it, but for making sure others can as well. And events like this, where the stories you'll hear tonight are being told, where people who are willing to be brave and tell their stories, creating space for others to do the same. Well, we may feel comfortable doing that in a place like West Hollywood, which I always hope is the case, and if it's not, definitely we're going to keep working on that here. But we have to keep creating that space all across the country. While it feels like it's closing in, it is really our call to action to come together and hold on and make sure that we can keep doing that. So it was so important for me to be here to help kick off this event, but Christina is truly a fearless leader, and we really thank you for what you've been doing. We want to recognize you on behalf of the City of West Hollywood with the proclamation for Bi Visibility Week. We'll give this to you. To start with, but I think it's really important that you hear from elected officials who can speak as clearly as I try to about what this moment really calls for, invite you into it, let you know that in me you certainly have an ally, a confidant, somebody who will continue this work for you on behalf of the City of West Hollywood, but on behalf of all of us who I think are really fighting for that space in our democracy to be our best and truest selves. So thank you for coming in, thank you to the city staff who helped make sure this event could happen, and the whole team at Rewrite the BiLine, and our city photographer who's going to make sure you look really good, and we can amplify these photos tonight. Thank you again for what you're doing. We really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Byers, for that beautiful, all those beautiful words. It's inspiring to see members of our government doing good things. We need more of that right now. And congratulations, Christina, and thank you again. Before I welcome all of our panelists, we are very excited to present a little video for all of you to watch. This video was produced by Rewrite the BiLine's own Christina Fiallo, as well as Aaron Hammersley, to help bring to life a report and industry guide that they created together and published last year. Their original research found that bi+ characters are usually misrepresented in 1 of 10 different ways on screen. So you can access Rewrite the BiLine's report and tool for building authentic bi+ characters for free, unless you want to donate, by following the QR code on the screen and the pamphlet that will be provided. So without any further ado, enjoy this short film. Trigger warning, it's not an easy one, but it's important. That was so good. Can we have one more round of applause? Thank you. So, as you can see, the representation of bi+ individuals on the screen has been varied and is largely problematic. If you want to learn more about the representation of bi+ people, definitely visit Rewrite the BiLine. But I also want to recommend 2 documentary films. One is the 1995 documentary, The Celluloid Closet. It's incredible. It discusses the history of LGBTQ+ representation in film. I love it. And I also want to recommend the more recent 2020 documentary film, Disclosure, which is more focused on the transgender experience and representation in film. Both great films to learn more. So now it's time for our panel, which is what I was most excited for tonight. So first, I want to ask you all in welcoming to the stage our moderator for the panel, the organizer of the event, the president of Rewrite the BiLine, Christina Fiallo. My personal friend, and she also happens to be an amazing attorney, the founder and president of Rewrite the BiLine. For nearly 2 decades, she's championed LGBTQ+ and immigrant rights, partnering with artists to spark cultural shifts and drive policy change, work that has helped pass multiple state and federal laws. Her work has appeared in an Emmy Award-winning series and outlets, including the Los Angeles Times, San Francisco Chronicle, Newsweek, Out, Rolling Stone, and more. In recognition of her leadership, she has received the John F. Kennedy New Frontier Award, an Ahsoka Fellowship, and an Echoing Green Fellowship. She also serves on the board of It Gets Better. Next up, please welcome Nicole Passage. She is an actor, singer, writer, and LGBTQ+ activist. She plays Rebecca Wilson on Criminal Minds, Evolution on Paramount+, which you should watch, it's amazing, I love Criminal Minds. And she has also appeared on numerous television shows, including Westworld, Call Me Kat, Anyone But Me, Good Trouble, and Blackish. For nearly 2 decades, she's been a visible voice in LGBTQ+ media, portraying queer characters, writing for queer outlets, co-hosting Coming Out Pod, and creating an educational YouTube series on bisexuality. Thank you, Nicole. Next to the stage, another friend of mine, R.K. Russell, who is an NFL legend. R.K. is also an author, an advocate. He made history as the first ever out active player in the NFL to come out as bisexual or at all. And you are just such an incredible human. I'm so happy that you're here. I truthfully lost my place in my little script, so I'm His memoir is actually being adopted by Sony Pictures Television into a comedy series. Can't working on soon. Next up to our panel is Sarah Ann Mass. She is a bisexual, queer, and invisibly disabled actor, writer, and comedian. Casual. Sarah founded Higher Survivors Hollywood after speaking out against Harvey Weinstein. I know that's right. Known for her award-winning role in She Said, Blue Ridge, and We Are Tomas. She's also a SAG-AFTRA leader and award-winning activist. And last, certainly not least to our panel is Erin Hammersley, a multidisciplinary. We love the hat. Erin is a multidisciplinary creative and advocate with an 18-year career spanning film, television, animation, music videos, and commercials. He has contributed to projects at every major film studio and has produced more than 90 Hollywood red carpet premieres. Since 2022, Erin has worked in the physical production department of the live-action feature division of Walt Disney Studios, helping bring big-budget theatrical releases to life. He's a movement champion and Rewrite the BiLine, and serves on the board of the Los Angeles Bi+ Task Force. So without any further ado, the panel, thank you, Erin.
Can we give Rose another round of applause? Well, I am so thrilled to be here with all of you tonight. We are going to get pretty personal on this panel. So I wanted to start off by sharing that I didn't know I was bi until later in life. Growing up, there wasn't really a word for my feelings. Society and religion had really erased the term bisexual from vocabulary that was in my reach. When I did start to hear the term bisexual, it was usually in reference to a character on screen who was the murderer, the cheater, the villain, as we just saw in the video. You know, sometimes we did get to be the vampire, and that was nice, but I didn't see myself in that character either. And I think if I had had better and more authentic bi representation on screen, I may have come out earlier to myself. And if there had been more acceptance of bi+ people in our society, I may have accepted myself more completely at a younger age. So my hope with Rewrite the BiLine is that the next generation really gets to see themselves reflected in the films that we watch and the stories that they read. So I'm so grateful to be here. I want to share that when I first started to connect with more bi+ people, as you all are here today doing as well, I started to learn that I wasn't alone. As Rose mentioned, we make up over 60% of the LGBTQ+ community. And we're certainly not, I'm certainly not alone in my later in life coming out story. So I wanted to start off with RK. One of the, can you hear me? This is going in and out. So here we go, try again. So RK is our resident NFL legend. He's also an extremely vulnerable and comedic writer. And RK, you also came out later in life, in your 20s, and it was in a very public way, as Rose mentioned. You not only were the first active NFL player to come out as bi, but the first active NFL player to come out as LGBTQ+. That just blows my mind. So I would love for you to just share a little bit about how you feel coming out publicly has started to reshape the narrative, or at least create space for bi+ people, both on and off screen, and maybe even on and off the field.
Yeah, definitely, thank you for the question. For me, coming out was solely like a very personal thing. I didn't think about the ripple effects of sport. I didn't think about, being on a panel like this at some point talking to all these people. I literally was just like, I feel like I'm going through life holding my breath and suffocating and and drowning, and I just feel like every connection that I make is fool's gold because they don't really know me and I'm not allowing them to know me. So when I got to a place in my journey through grief and loss and realizing how like finite our time here is on earth, I was like, I gotta just be me and let the chips fall where they may. I love football, I still love football, but I got to a point in my life where I loved me more. And I was like, if coming out means sacrificing this, then okay, but it shouldn't. So I was like ready to tweet, like I was fully ready to just get on my phone and like, let's get this over with. But I then saw the opportunity to not necessarily make a change, but to tell my story. And I think we, especially in today's climate, cannot underestimate the power of our stories, the power that sharing creates, the empathy that it creates, and the ripple effects that you have, because there will be so many people in this lifetime that I don't get to meet, but hopefully they get to meet a part of me in my journey through coming out in such a public way. The sports space on the male side is, what's a nice word? Trash. Yeah, there's just a lack of, it is right now sports on the male side is a machine to create more of the same, which is a lot of rigid masculinity, a lot of backwards thinking and misogyny and all of these things. But if you just, change your TV a couple of channels, you will see that in the women's sports leagues, that there is a lot of power on the courts, on the fields, on the pitch, and off, and that the leagues can actually be beacons of what we want our society to be, which is one that just is accepting, one of inclusion, one of love, and one that centers around like just people respecting each other and allowing people to be who they are. So I decided to share my story publicly. I wrote a letter first because writing has always just been my truest form of communication. It's something where there's no judgment, there's no like person talking back to you. And I realized that I was able to be more truthful on the page than I could be face to face in any capacity. And that kind of took a life of its own and became this big coming out thing on TV. And at the end of the day, I remember leaving the studio and just feeling happier. And you don't realize when you carry something for so long how heavy it is until you finally take it off. And that is a joy that I want everyone to feel. I want everyone to, even if you're not a queer person or don't identify as LGBTQ+, we all hold shame, we all hold secret, we all hold weight in our life that I hope we can all at one point take off and just allow ourselves to breathe and to live and to love and enjoy our lives.
I hope in this space tonight we can start to take off some of that weight, for sure. Thank you so much. One of the things that you're speaking to is kind of the box that we get put into, whether that's off the screen or on the screen. And I know with Erin, we worked on this guide that Rose was talking about on bi-representation on screen. And that's a lot of what we found is these boxes that we were put into. I know for me, one of the things that was most shocking is that for even positive bi-representation, we were put into this binary box. Like you heard things like, oh, I like both, or I like men and women, when we know that being bi plus means being attracted to more than one gender or sex outside of the binary. Yes. But I'd love if you wanted to talk a little bit more about that and any other insights or shocking things that you found in writing the guide.
Yeah. When you guys saw the video, there's a lot of I like men and women, which is true for me, but there's a lot of other people that I like too. And that seems to be the through line of our entire community. So I'll start by saying that I think any film or television show that has ever been made, it's art, and art is always a time capsule to what society believes at that moment. And speaking to the video and also the guide itself, every conversation, everything that we wrote about, that I watched, the hundreds of things that I watched to write the guide with you, was a time capsule of how the world feels about people like us. And that just is what it is, and I just constantly kept saying that we deserve better. which is what I still believe. The binary thing to me is the same thing as the tokenism that we're seeing. It's the same thing as changing characters. It's the same thing as we were talking backstage about how many times now you have a character that finally says the word bi, and then that's the end of their storyline. So from that moment onward, we never see them date multiple kinds of people. We don't see them, you know, living their best bi life. It's literally like, that's it. Or, you know, in the case of Heartstopper, probably we'll only ever see them in a same-sex relationship. And so it's all of these things that I kept going back to, what does mainstream take from it, right? So it's an art form. When a mainstream audience who's not necessarily somebody who connects the material already before they walk into the television show or the movie, what do they take away? Well, they take away everything that was said on the screen. And there's no other conversations happening anywhere else. So this is where we're at. This is where our society's at.
Yeah, thank you. There is hope, though, which we found some as well. And I want to turn to Nicole, because you play Rebecca Wilson on Criminal Minds, which is the first reoccurring LGBTQ plus character in this 18-season run for the series. I think what's particularly wonderful about your character is that she's neither villain nor victim. And I'd love if you could just share a little with the audience about your character, for those who haven't watched it, and you should all go watch Criminal Minds, and what it's meant to you to play such a character.
Yeah, absolutely. So Rebecca Wilson is an attorney for the DOJ, and she gets into a relationship with one of the series regulars, a member of the behavioral analysis unit, Tara, played by Aisha Tyler. So yes, Aisha's my on-screen blankie. And what's amazing, a few things about this are amazing. Yeah, first of all, they've had LGBTQ characters before that have either been victims or villains. As in. And Aisha's character also was assumed to be straight prior to the relationship with Rebecca. And it's sort of just said in passing in a conversation with another one of the BAU members, like, oh yeah, you know, I also date women. And it's like, all right, great. Like that was all her whole coming out. And my character was really only supposed to be a one-season arc. That was it. But people really attached to it, and I think the writers also saw how important the representation was, and also I was there being like, it's very important. So yeah, so now I just wrapped my 4th season on the show. So it's been great, and what I love about it, a couple things I love about it. Number one, like you get to see just 2 very strong, intelligent women who have their relationship ups and downs, but they're reflective more of just like work-life balance and also serial killers, that's all of it. But like more of just what happens in a regular queer relationship than it being about the queerness, you know, or there being some tragedy, or there, you know, it feels very normal, which is what we want. So there's that, and then for me personally, it means a lot because, I mean, so I came out when I was 15, 2000, oh my God. I came out when I was 15, and there was like nothing. I mean, there was basically nothing at that point, except Queer as Folk, and I used to watch that like very on the sly. And then when I was right out of college, I was cast immediately in a web series that ended up taking off. That was a queer coming of age story. And it was written and created by a writer and creator of the L Word. And so I had submitted to it being like, I needed this show when I was a teenager, please let me audition for this. And it all worked out very, very nicely. But basically since then, I cannot tell you the number of queer characters that I've played. And when I got that initial role, the Aster role, there was the question of like, okay, but like, if you do this, and especially if you come out publicly, that might be it. Like these might be the only roles you ever play. So, and I was like, similar to what you were saying, I was just like, that's not an option for me. Especially because at that point I'd been out since I was 15. And I was like, I'm not gonna lie to other people, not to mention that I fully believe in leading by example, and I fully believe that if you are being yourself in public for other people, it gives other people permission to do the same. And I felt that when I graduated in 2007, and I feel it right now in 2025. And so Rebecca has been sort of a culmination of eking along in indie queer media and playing so many small queer roles to then be on a juggernaut of a mainstream show and have this representation. So it feels like an amazing pinnacle of a journey so far.
Yeah, it truly is. And the fact that your co-star Aisha and you are both queer and you play queer characters, I think that's so important at this particular time, this environment where we have dangerous extremist ideologies trying to claw back our rights off screen. We need to see something beautiful on screen to remind us that is how it should be.
And it's been a cool change also over these past however many years that I've been doing this, that to see the pendulum swing to wanting authenticity behind casting. And I do think that there is a balance. I absolutely believe actors within reason should be able to play things that depart from their own, identities in certain ways, obviously. However, I have really appreciated the drive towards authenticity and towards inclusion of queer actors playing queer roles, because I think even then when it does swing back, we're creating a base of authenticity for the future, so yeah.
That makes me think of you, Sarah, too, because you bring a lot of your personal story both into the characters you play, but also the scripts that you write. So in She Said, which is about the New York Times investigation that exposed Harvey Weinstein, you brought your personal experience into that character and into the behind-the-scenes work. And I think in a lot of ways that work and so many other things helped shape Higher Survivors Hollywood, which is doing such important work on basically shaping and supporting survivor narratives, which is particularly important for bi+ people, as Rose mentioned with the statistics, because bi+ people disproportionately are affected by sexual violence. So grateful for the work that you do. Do you want to share a little bit more about Higher Survivors Hollywood and anything else about how your own personal journey kind of shapes the work that you do and the roles you decide to choose and take?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for the kind words. We all have multiple identities, right? I'm queer, I'm disabled, I'm a woman, I'm a survivor. And as a creator, I don't know how to not put my lived experience into what I write. I don't know how to not bring my lived experience to the screen when I'm playing a character. So when I got to play Emily Steele, who is this real person, a New York Times journalist, I was coming at it from the other side of it. I'm a survivor. I didn't really hold any power or agency when I first started telling my story about being abused by Harvey Weinstein. But I took that power and I took that agency. I found ways to get my name back. When I first started telling my story, my name was never used in the headlines. It was always Weinstein accuser this, Weinstein survivor that. And that was personally frustrating, but it was globally painful, because I realized that if this was happening to me, somebody who was very outspoken, very comfortable advocating for myself, what was happening to every other survivor who was telling their story? What was happening to every other historically marginalized person who was trying to have an existence either in this industry or in this world, and having their identity stripped away? So getting to bring my knowledge of what it was like to be a person being interviewed by these journalists and bring that to the perspective of the journalist, I think gave a really nuanced, authentic take on who this person was. And on top of that, I actually called Universal when the movie was announced. And
like literally got on the phone with the switchboard, just giving names of executives until they connected me with someone. And I said, I have this initiative. At the time, we weren't a nonprofit, and we work to improve survivor representation, to make sure there's no retaliation going on, because that's something I've dealt with. It's very significant career harm from telling my story. And to their credit, they called me back. They sent me an email, we had a meeting, and I gave them advice on how they could be inclusive to survivors on this project. Because it's not just a survivor story, it was real people being portrayed in this film. And they took some of that advice and they auditioned several of us, and they made sure we had access to a therapist to call while we were on set if anything was activating. And I wanted them to do more, and we knew we could do more, but it was a really good first step. So I took that as a springboard to reach more people, and my nonprofit now consults on films, consults on theater projects. We have a free 32-page toolkit that any filmmaker or theater maker can use to be more inclusive of survivors. And I think when people hear me talk about survivors, they think it's this very narrow group of people, but survivors are everywhere. I assume every room I'm in, there's many, many survivors in that room, and most survivors are multiply marginalized. So when we improve access for survivors, when we improve representation for survivors, we're also improving it for every group of people who've been erased, who've been historically marginalized, who have not been authentically represented. So it's been very important to me in the work that we do. I'm, a cis white woman, so our advisory board does not just look like me. We have people of all different lived experiences working with us, so that we can authentically consult, so that we can bring these stories to the screen and the stage in a way that feels safer, that feels more representative, so that the crew has safe spaces on set, a place they can go to decompress and get resources. Like, these things are very important, and I think that I sort of decided to use myself as an example of what this can look like, and what the downsides of being so public about your identity can be, so that other people don't have to go through the same thing. And there is this, I think with everybody on this panel, there's a sense of like bravery and selflessness that comes from going, I'm going to tell my authentic truth in a way that might harm me, that might harm my income and my career, but I'm going to do it because I don't want to live a lie, I don't want to live in the shadows, but also I don't want anyone else to have to deal with that. So that's been a real driving force. And a film I wrote just got announced, and it's a really fun, like, road trip comedy, and it's a lot about like female love and relationships and chosen families, but I actually started writing it before I came out. And I started writing it before I realized that I was bi and queer. And from the beginning, I wrote this character who was bisexual and who was married to a cis-het guy and had kids. I don't have kids, but after I came out, I realized, oh, I wrote myself. Like, I came out later in life. I only came out 3 years ago, and I've been married to Nick, my husband, for a long time. And my biggest fear coming out was, are people going to believe that I'm queer enough? Am I going to be welcomed by a community? I'm lucky to have a family who's very embracing of LGBTQ folks and always has been. So I wasn't nervous to come out to them, but I was nervous about what my friends would say, what they would think. And I did have friends who claimed to be allies say really biphobic things to me, like, oh, are you getting divorced, or is this being for your relationship? If you're not, why do you even bother coming out? What's the point? And it was in that moment that I was like, okay, we obviously have a really long way to go with representation of survivors and disability. Like, I have a mascot, right, because I'm immunocompromised, and we clearly still have a very long way to go when it comes to BI+ representation and LGBTQ representation, because if our allies, our supposed allies are saying these things, how are we ever going to get the broader world who may not understand us or have exposure to us in ways that are like clear or might feed us? How are we ever going to get them on board if we can't even reach the people who are supposed to be supporting us?
Well, congratulations though on this new script that's been.
Thank you. I meant to say, the really cool thing is it's called Mother Trucker, and Amber Rappin, who also came out around the same time that I did, is playing Allie. So we have a queer actress coming into this role and like bringing her lived experience to it as well, which is just the best.
This is the exact type of film we want to see. But I love what you're saying about the multiple identities that we walk through the world with. And And that makes me think about what you were saying earlier, RK, about the boxes that, sports or really so many industries want to put us in. And one of the things that we hear over and over again is that it's really hard to portray bisexual people because we can't put them into a box. It's like, okay, that can make for good drama. Clearly I disagree. But that's why I'm also so excited about the comedy series that you're producing and writing, because I think one of the things that I assume is kind of a challenge is, and I'd love to hear you talk about, kind of how you're approaching honoring your own personal journey while still, creating something for mass appeal.
Yeah, first I have to say I'm super lucky to have a collaborator that gets it. My executive producer is Gabrielle Union. She was like one of the first meetings I took, and she just understands, like, we talk about being allies, and like being an ally, it shouldn't be an easy job. Like it should be hard. It should take a intention that is sometimes exhausting, because though you don't walk through the world at these intersections, you have to continually kind of put on that armor and fight those fights. And she's just someone who really breathes and lives it. Just someone who also taught me a lot about my own journey and my own experience in these rooms, and someone who at the end of the day was like, if you need someone to curse out these execs and tell them about themselves, I'm your girl. So I'm very love this. And it was very important to make it a comedy, which was actually her idea. I think sometimes when you live your own life, I'm like looking at my book and I'm like looking at my coming out story, my trauma, and I'm like, I wasn't laughing. This wasn't it's not giving comedy. But when someone also who's so seasoned in the business tells you, like, we can have all these conversations and disarm people with comedy. We can hide the medicine in the good food and still talk about these things and also just be entertained. That was something that really made sense to me and I really connected with. And my piece of it that I was really adamant about was making it a post-coming out story. I was like, within 5-10 minutes, this man needs to be out. I was like, this man needs to be out, proud, bisexual, not really even understanding what being an out, proud, bisexual means, and like be able to be messy and grow. Because for me growing up, and still today, the coming out is the ending. And you get to it and it's either happy or you've been through hell and high water, you get there and the credits roll. And when I came out in my real life, I had gone to therapy at this point, I had a relationship, I made this big move, and I was like, I did it. I was like, I'm healed, I'm ascending, this is great. This is like peak me. And then the next day came, and I started to pay bills, and I started to figure stuff out. And I had to have conversations with family and friends in a different way. I had multiple conversations with my partner about my own attraction and where they kind of fit in that. So are you attracted to me physically, or are you just attracted to people that, like, all of these things, and there was so much still to happen, and I was like, I've never seen this art. I've never been into a film, into a theater, or watching a show on streaming or on TV, and someone hold my hand and be like, this is kind of what it looks like for me. It will look similar and different for you, and it was very important for me to create that. My main character is going to date a lot and get it wrong a lot. He's going to have his own idea of what being bisexual means and meet someone else who completely destroys what he thinks that is. And I think that is so beautiful. I think also to have something that is so like central to who he is, but also like he's playing football and there's this huge larger than life thing happening and he's still dedicating himself to that. And he has his own internalized biphobia as well and all these things. And it's just really cool. It's really cool to have these conversations. It's really cool that people are excited about it. And at the end of the day, we get some notes that are like crazy, weird, strange, vague, kind of dumb things. And I love that everyone's on the team like, okay, so the note, I'm gonna notice this, and we're just gonna do this, and we're gonna make it work. And I'm like, this is so cool, like to be a part of the story makers. And like, there's nothing like that. Football's dope, but like at the end of the day, it hurts. It hurts a lot. You get paid a lot, but also like it's a team sport in a different way in terms of like, no one's gonna do your job for you. Whereas in the storytelling piece of it, I am constantly learning and growing and being made better by the collaborators that I'm working with. And that's just so beautiful.
I love this. that's so exciting. I think the audience really got excited about that too. And I'm just sitting up here smiling, so I think the comedy angle is probably good. Before we turn it to all of you for any questions that you have, I wanted to get a little political. So one of the things that Rewrite the BiLine has been doing with the City of West Hollywood, and Mayor Chelsea Lee Byers has been a real champion of this, is working to pass 2 ordinances to expand rights for non-nuclear families, particularly poly families. Yes, we're very excited. So if anyone wants to get involved, please go to our website, rewritethebyline.com. And another reason why I'm so excited to have Nicole here, Nicole was the polyamory consultant on season 2 of the L Word Generation Q, which I have so many questions. I wish I had many hours to ask. But one question would be just if you can share a little bit about what that experience was like, but also how do you think ensuring that we have better poly representation on screen also creates opportunities for pushing the boundaries and really laying bare what a bi plus identity and relationship could look like?
Oh, I love that you asked this. So I actually have a series that I am about to start shopping around. That the first twist was already written, but it is loosely based on my experience. But it is exactly that. I really had to grapple with how I felt when I first started writing. I felt the weight of all bisexual people on my shoulders. I was like, oh my god. And I realized, but it's also a poly story. And the bisexual of it is kind of, it's a feature, but it is much more about the poly journey. And the bisexuality plays into that. So, but I felt when I first started writing it, I was coming up against so much fear that I was going to that I was going to fall into stereotypes, bi stereotypes, or somebody was going to point at and be like, see, I knew it! They would have their cake and eat it too. That kind of stuff. So it was one of those things where I was like, oh my god, I'm trying to make my lead such a good girl, but she's fucking boring now. And she's not real, and she's not me now. And so I had to kind of throw all of that out and be like, okay, there are, as was said, so many different ways of being bisexual. My poly journey happened 15 years after my journey happened. So in any case, the way that the L Word thing came out is that, yeah, I came out as poly 10 years ago, 11 years ago, something like that. And I talked about it mostly just amongst friends or whatever. And so I went to college with Marshall Lewis Ryan, who was the showrunner for L Word Generation Q. And so she knew that she knew I was bi in college, and then she knew I was poly afterwards. And so when they wanted to incorporate a poly storyline for Alicia Hill's character, she called me up and was like, hey, would you be interested in talking to some of the writers and the cast, and kind of we could pick your brain and whatever? And I was like, yeah, sure. I'll do that. I was like, do you want a professional to do this? And she said, no, we want somebody who's has real experience and isn't gonna jargonize it a bunch. And I was like, got you. And so, and even in doing that, it was I kept saying, I also want you to know, I am representing one way in which this can go. I have my own limited experience, which at that point was, dating around, but married to a cis-het man in a long-term relationship with a cis lesbian, in the time since I am in a different relationship now with a non-binary person, long-term. And so, I was like, I can only give you what I've experienced and tell you to go and talk to a lot of other bisexual and polyamorous people, and then make your own determination. But it was very exciting that people wanted it to happen. It was also exciting that they finally acknowledged that Alicia Haley's character was bi again, after seasons of them being like, I guess she's just gay now. And all of us were like, wait, what? So in any case, I'm very excited about the polyamory of it. It's a little hard right now because like, politically, everybody knows it's hard right now to say what you want. And I had like a very prominent writer, producer who is queer and just has had an enormous amount of experience. He was like, I love your script, and the industry is allergic to identity-based content. So if you want to try to sell this, you basically have to try to take bisexual and polyamory out of the log line and like as much out of one sheet as possible. Yeah. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll do that about my bisexual polyamorous story. So anyway, so there's a long way to go, but in terms of I didn't know this family initiative was coming up, and that's so exciting because my kid has like 3.5 parents, so.
Well, thank you so much. We want to open it up to any questions. Rose is going to go around. If anybody has a question, just raise your hand. We have time for at least a couple questions.
When you came out, I remember some articles were written in regional newspapers that you were the first LGBTQ NFL player. Not the first to come out, the first one ever. In 100 years ago, there's a level of denial with NFL fans. What's it like feeling that kind of weight and pressure on the other side of this, as it were?
I think for me, I'm only one person, and my life, first and foremost, is for me. The work that I do and the stories that I tell are important, but they are just a part of me and a part of my journey here, and in some, even a part of my purpose. Sports is a space that has always been inherently queer. Like I was talking the other day on social media about like sports drag, because I'm like face paint and mascots and touchdown dances and the performance and the theatrics of it all. Like, this is drag. But for me, I think what helps and works best when talking to sports entities is to very much do kind of like inclusion, queer education 101, and be like, this normalization is already kind of happening. Like you have queer fans, you have queer players, like you're not fighting against like this unknown thing. Like it's already in the house with you. You just need to acknowledge it and allow people to sit at the table and share with you. So the pressure that I feel also is, there's this saying that I don't know where I got it from, so maybe it's mine. There's no pressure where there's purpose. Like I move with purpose in my life, and I don't feel pressure to show up any other way than myself. And that's not pressure, that's just me being authentic. And sports is constantly acting like this is new when, like I said earlier, you can look at the female sports leagues and see, oh, this is actually how it's done. This is how we empower our players. This is how we uplift diversity. This is how we have a league run by also the players in women run women's sports leagues, which is also beautiful. And like, there's already the wheel, we don't have to reinvent it. It's already happening. So it's just allowing them to kind of catch up, holding their hands, a lot of holding hands, and a lot of having fun. Because at the end of the day, sports is about entertainment, and like we just all love to watch the game. Like that's point blank period. You don't care if we're all in the same bar with the same jersey on. I'm not sitting there thinking, I wonder who this person's married to. Or I wonder like what religion they're with. No, it's like our team scores, we're both fucking chest bumping and high-fiving, and it's a good day. It's a good fucking Sunday. So just keeping that hard things. But yeah, there's no pressure or purpose. I just move with purpose, and I hope that people see and I allow them to do the same. Thank you.
Next hour about, because can we talk about how unfair it is that like you have to be like the sole representative, right? This is what Christina and I would talk about, which is like, why does one character have to be the entire equivalency of a bi experience or any experience? We have thousands of gay movies now. We have, I don't even know how many millions of films about straight, white, cis people, and we'll have more, it'll be fine. But you know, how it doesn't take anything away for us to have more and more.
Yes.
And it's realistic. I don't know a single queer person who doesn't have 10 other queer friends.
Exactly.
Right then.
Also, in terms of spaces, when your space is filled with a diverse collection of people, the art is always elevated.
Yes. Agreed.
I think we still have more time. I think there might be more time.
Hi, I'm Olivia, and I also came out later in life, and I'm a filmmaker, and I'm curious about, I'm just gonna stand, I'm standing way back here. I'm glad you touched on polyamory, because I feel like an issue that comes up with bi representation is like the bi erasure that we see happen in real life as well. Like if a bi person is in a relationship with someone of the opposite sex, then it's like now it's their straight passing, and now they are worried that they're like they get accosted for not being queer enough, but then if they like are with someone of the same sex, then it's like, oh, they are gay now, and like without sort of seeing bi characters. I guess I was just curious of like your thoughts on like how to represent that authentically, so that we don't see that bi erasure happen once bi characters are in relationships. So I don't know if that's like seeing them like just over a long period of time, or like keeping up discussion about sort of their identity even as they're in a relationship, because they're still like their self. So I was just wondering if you have thoughts.
I have some thoughts on it. For me, as I'm writing bi characters especially, a lot of the time I choose to write someone who is already in a relationship, because I want the focus to be on the fact that once somebody's in a relationship, it doesn't erase their identity. And for bi folks, as you're saying, that is typically what happens. I walk through the world straight passing, but my cishet husband is in a queer relationship. Like, that's the actual truth of it, because I am queer and I am in this relationship. And so I try to find ways to just present the character as I see myself and I see my friends moving through the world. And we don't have to say bi 17 times in a script, but we introduce a character, hopefully through, good dialogue and not heavy-handed exposition. We discover, their identity and their sexuality, and then in the mind of the audience, that's just present through everything that they do. So everything you see this person do means that this is a part of their queer, bi-plus experience, right? And our identities, our sexualities are nuanced, and every person has a different experience. And I think that there is this balance between representation and just truth-telling, right? Like, this particular person in this particular moment is having this particular experience. And they happen to be queer, or they happen to be disabled, or they are, Black, or they're whatever. Like, this is, their reality is shaped by the identities that they have and their experiences. And so sometimes, like, we'll see a character being biphobic because it's important to show what that looks like. Or sometimes we see that character having to correct the misconceptions about what their sexuality is, what their identity is. So I think the more bi-plus people we have telling stories, the more we'll get to see those nuanced experiences of what it is to be bi-plus.
And by the way, what you just described is what every character is in every film and television show.
Exactly.
Right? We're just held to higher standards for some weird reason, but excuse me, society holds us to higher standards.
Yeah, I think also the fact that we're usually just like that one character, and that's all. So we have to be all, that one character has to be everybody. That's what you're talking about. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
There's this great show called Felices Los Six. It's an Argentinian show. It's on Max. It's in Spanish. They have English subtitles. It's awesome. It's about polyamory. It's tons of bi representation across, and it's wonderful to actually be in a world where polyamory and bisexuality isn't seen as the strange thing. It's actually the norm for this show. So I'd love to see more of that. It's such a great question. Thank you so much for asking.
And I just want to shout out another, I came out literally through a combination of being in group therapy and watching Our Flag Means Death, which is the show that's ostensibly about pirates. But the characters on that show, there are so many gender expensive characters, there are so many queer characters, and they show up in all sorts of different ways and bodies and ages and experiences. And it was the first time I watched something and went, oh, that's the experience I've been having. I didn't have girl crushes my whole life. I'm attracted to more than one gender, but I never saw it. I never saw myself. So when we can have media that shows a multitude of people who come from the queer community and all of those experiences, then that pressure comes off. And we don't have to constantly be talking about the fact that I'm bi. It's just, it's part of the world we live in. Just like the real world, right? Like we're surrounded by people with all sorts of different identities, so our media should represent that.
Hi, thanks for being here. And this is a question maybe for Christina. I went to see the Getty Queer Lens exhibit. Yeah, it's very good. But I also felt going through it like the representation for the BiPlus community was a little.
I texted Christina when I went.
Yeah, I have a question for Erin.
Oh, we did have this conversation.
Well, and I appreciate what they're doing. It just felt like the lens maybe, wasn't as expansive as it could have been. And so I wondered if, as part of the BiLine, well, one, if you all are aware of any other kind of exhibits that do have a little bit more representation, but also if you thought of maybe doing something with, the Academy of Motion Pictures or some other kind of thing, because that film that you showed at the beginning was amazing to be able to see sort of what we've, not been seeing and then what we could be seeing. So, okay, whoever on the panel.
I'll let Erin start off.
Okay. I mean, I definitely want to see Alice E. Blanche in the Academy Award. Just so everybody knows, she was bi, she invented the studio system, she was a woman, she was from France, she was amazing. She basically gave us what the industry looks like today. Totally erased because she was a woman. So yeah, I think that conversation should be at the Academy Museum. I had the exact same experience at the Queer Lens. I thought it was such a beautiful exhibit. And then I walked into the portrait gallery and I called Christina. I was basically in tears because I was watching, them use the word queer to erase BiPlus identity as a whole. As I'm watching pictures of David Bowie and Freddie Mercury and just all of these people that are both queer but BiPlus. And there's just a severe lack of it in that particular exhibit, which, yes, we should do something. But, my favorite thing about bi people, as I always say, is that we can hold more than one thing true at the same time.
Yes, I love that. This is just the beginning of the work. I started to rewrite the BiLine 2 years ago. It's a completely volunteer effort on my part and on the part of everybody here tonight as well. One of the things that we have started to think about is also bi representation on the stage. So we're doing an event in New York City next month. That's going to focus on that particularly, because that's a really interesting area too, because there are so many queer people in theater, and there's kind of queer representation, but there's literally no bi representation, with the exception of some more modern examples where you actually hear the word bisexual. So we want to see that change as well, and we want to learn what's actually driving that invisibility in that space as well. So if you're passionate about this too, I'd love to talk to you afterwards. Anybody, this is our movement together.
Hi, thank you all for coming. I was just wondering what was the first bi character that you remember hearing about or watching. Yeah, just a quick one.
I know what mine is, only because I've had to think about it way too much in my life. But no, actually, it's in the video. It's the movie Threesome with Adam Baldwin, and it's such a random film, but I remember that and another, there's a gay movie called Jeffrey that's older, that a friend of mine watched in college, and in it, Jeffrey says, "Oh, I'm bi," and everybody laughs at him. And at the time in my life, I was searching for what I was, and I realized that I was bi on some level, and then everybody laughed at it, and then in real life, a lot of my friends who were gay and straight also tried to erase me when I came out as bi. So it was a very parallel experience.
I don't remember what it was, but I remember being a kid and watching a sitcom, and it was very similar, where there was a bi character who was like a just not even recurring, like a one episode character, and they were accused of being greedy and a cheater, and then secretly gay, right? Like that's what I remember, and I don't know, I clearly, like, it didn't make an, maybe, I don't know, I think it was more modern, I think it was like more of like a, I don't want to say it was Friends, but it was like something like that from the 90s or early 2000s, and clearly
Well, there's a lot of one-offs in Will and Grace, to be honest.
Yeah.
I do love that show for the record.
yeah, there's so, I mean, I talk about Will and Grace all the time because it like brought gay people into people's living rooms in the middle of the country and helped normalize it, which is so important, but even in shows where there is better representation, bi people were the butt of the joke, or they were being erased, and it stuck with me, and not in a way where I was like, oh, because that's me, and now I have to feel scared about being it, but clearly it like lodged itself in my brain, and it only has been recently that I've seen actual, like, authentic, more authentic representation of bi plus characters, and that sucks.
I had a series of kind of like films that I went through. So it started, it was like 2012, I was in my college dorm, my roommate was like 10 feet away, he was sleeping like a rock. And I had my laptop, I was like, okay, porn felt like too risky, so I was just like, look at movies. And I had heard about like Brokeback Mountain at the time, like this big game. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna turn that on and see what happened. I swear to you, I was like 10 minutes into sleep. Dead sleep. I had my headphones that were just gone. And then like I remember hearing like the rustling of like the tents. And I saw the sex scene and I was like, okay, that was something. Like that's cool. I was like, okay, stuff's happening in my body. Like I like this. But then I saw some of the rest of it. I was like, this is sad. So that was like night one, and then I was like, that's kind of like a failure. That's like gave me more questions. Then the next time I put on Netflix, and there was a film or a movie called Geography Club, I think it was, and
TV show. It is a movie.
Yeah, it
It's
was.
like an indie film.
I just remember it was like a closet at, it was like high school, I believe. There was a guy mentioning someone he didn't know who it was, and found out, like, of course, it's like the quarterback of the football team, both just like white, cisgender guys. And they fool around, and of course, the football player like beats him up or gets mad or something. I don't know. It was like very, but I think at the end, then he like comes out as bi, and I was like, what is that? That sounds interesting. But of course, he was using it as like a proximity to straightness, so like it was still kind of tainted, so I was like trash. Then the last, okay, so this is the last one. And then, I don't know how I stumbled upon this movie, and I need to rewatch it because it actually means so much to me. I believe it's called Angels of Sex. I believe it's a Spanish film. I know I watched it in subtitles, and it also is like a polyamorous film, which I didn't know anything about at the time. But it is a young married couple who move, newlyweds. The man then has an interaction with like this hot, like dancer who's also like a street performer, and like starts breakdancing. I was like, oh shoot, white people can breakdance this. And then they like fall in love. I'm thinking like, oh my god, this is like, he's like gay, like this is coming out. And then the wife finds out, the dancer, you know, she's like leaving the husband, whatever. The dancer, they both try to console the wife, and like, he really loves you, like don't leave him. And then they fall in love. And I'm like, wait, there's something going on. I'm like, I like this. And then the husband comes and he's sad. And he's like, I love Rio, but I love you. And she's like, I also love Rio. And then they all try to make it work. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but I want you this. I was like, this feels right, makes sense to me. So that was my queer journey through film.
Oh, I wish mine was as positive as that. Yes, thank you. Yeah, there you go. Honestly, the first, we can't even call it bisexual, but the first bisexual representation I saw was Wild Things. So, Denise Richards and Campbell, they make out in the pool, and that was like what made it okay to kiss girls. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, it was like, you know, that's the socially acceptable way to do this. So that was not positive representation, everybody. And then shortly after that, Angelina Jolie like came out as bi. And so then, to me, all of her characters were bi after that. I saw Cruel Intentions and I was like, she's fucking so bi. Look at her like flirting with Winona Ryder. That's like where all this tension is. It's like all, so yeah, so it's just for me, everything Angelina ever played is bi. There it is.
I think we had wild things in one of the
Yeah,
videos.
cut, but it was in there. I just cut it for time. The video was like 40 minutes long. It's all long. It was way too long. Yeah, Wild Things was in there. I don't know how many other really fun things we had. I can't think of them all now, but yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, the first time I probably heard the term bisexual, I don't know, but I definitely remember that Sex and the City scene, and like, it's so terrible. You're like, oh, okay, so that's not a good thing to be, so alright. But I really love the bold type that was in there, Kat, where she talks about that she doesn't like labels generally, but this one feels like an important one. Yeah, so that's mine. I think we are about to close, so I thank you, Rose, for going around. Thank you all for your questions. I want to end with a final question for Sarah and Aaron, because both of you advocate for more bi+ representation in the writers' rooms and in production. I'd love to hear kind of how you've seen the strategies that you've implemented start to create some impact and change. And then, big question, just some like parting words for what you think is the future of bi+ representation on screen.
Well, I think, for me, it's been really interesting how to get these rooms and how to have these conversations. The work that we've done with my nonprofit, again, focused on survivors, but I always say it's sort of like a backdoor into, I don't like to call it DEI anymore, I call it ideas, inclusion, diversity, equity, accessibility, and safety. I think the safety part gets missed a lot. We use it as a way to increase representation, but we very much started with independent filmmakers. Independent filmmakers ran to us and said, this is so important, we want to do this. And so we've provided these resources and have these partnerships with independent filmmakers. But I've had to be very creative. We're a very small organization. While I've been very lucky to do some really great things in my artistic career, I'm not some incredibly famous, powerful person. So I do have to do things like call switchboards. And when I'm at an awards show as an actor, I don't spend my time networking for myself. I spend my time networking for the nonprofit and trying to get, studio executives to talk to me and take meetings. And sometimes it takes months and years to finally get them on board with putting you on one project or agreeing to one training. And you have to be really dogged. And it's good. There are people who, really want to take it on board. I met a creative executive through a script, actually Mother's Record, several years ago, and we really connected and we stayed in touch, and now she's a major producer, and she was working on a film that's coming out later this year. I can't say what it is yet, but it has a pretty heavy storyline of domestic violence. And 2 weeks before they were shooting, she called me and said, hey, can you come consult? I talked to the director, he wants you. I talked to the studio, they're interested. You kind of have to pitch it to the studio. So I got on a Zoom from a hotel room somewhere in, Texas, because I was driving across the country, and I had to pitch to the studio. And they couldn't honor our contract fully. They didn't have all the money, but we made it work. And I went and I was on set for a week in New Jersey, and we created this wellness space. And the crew really got to come and decompress from this incredibly activating material that we were shooting. And the executives in the studio called me crying a couple weeks later, saying the feedback that we've gotten has been so incredible. And so I just think wherever you are in your life, whatever you're doing, use whatever tiny amounts of power access you have to start having these conversations about representation, about bi+ representation. But I just want to say, I think we have to be honest about where we are right now, what this moment is, and have tough conversations. And I will acknowledge that, yes, we need to get these media companies to understand why this matters. I have to talk to people about the bottom line. I want people to do things for the right reasons, but I also know that this is a business. So I talk to them about the fact that all of the studies and all the data show that people want to see themselves on screen, react better to authentic representation, spend more money on diverse projects. Women and historically marginalized groups watch the most amount of streaming of any group of people. And it's hard though to sit here in this moment and talk about trying to get these media executives, these major conglomerations to listen to this and care about this when honestly we're sitting in West Hollywood right now, which I love. I used to live here. It's an amazing community. But the flags were lowered to have staff for Charlie Kirk the other day, our pride flags here in West Hollywood. And so if we want these major corporations to not get into, fascistic pressure from the federal government, we also have to see that in our communities. We have to see that in our local government. So this is kind of a fight that we have to take to every part of our community, every society that we interact with, every professional world that we live in, and we can change it. We have to not comply. We have to stand strong in the face of this. So we're at a critical moment right now where it's scary to keep advocating, but that's why we have to keep doing it.
Because you said like so many things that we just talked. This is what we're like when you and I go to lunch. First of all, I want to acknowledge that Sarah and myself and just a lot of people like us, like Nicole and everybody, we have fought in this industry so hard, so long, crawled our way to the middle. I feel like there have been moments in my life where I've been in rooms with the upper echelon, and I have worked with probably most celebrities in Hollywood at this point, and it's been like a beautiful thing that doesn't feel real to me because I don't come from anywhere. But I think about those moments when I'm like fighting at work to just have us have dialogues and do like 101s for different kinds of people and culture and stuff. I think about it, like you said, I think a lot of what we do when we're trying to pitch like independent projects or get something greenlit or whatever is to come from the mainstream ideology, to try to talk about the money, to try to talk about how this is just a story of a character that people can relate to. And I think, to your point, a lot of the identity politics complicate things in just the way that now an actor is also defined by who they are as a human being, and then that can limit who they are considered for roles, which is wrong in my opinion, because like my favorite anecdote is that bi people would be great as actors because they can have chemistry with potentially a lot of different kinds of people, and that's really beautiful and awesome. And to the mainstream point, I think what's difficult in this current place versus maybe like when I was pitching a couple projects only right before the streaming boom, is that we shifted dramatically into these very siloed places that we all live now. So you all watch something that algorithmically the tech companies believe that that's all that you want to watch, and audiences largely have become more complacent and don't want to be as uncomfortable watching stuff that maybe challenges them in some way. And so we need to get back to a place as an industry where we have mainstream again, where people do turn in on Thursday nights or whatever the version of that is in the future. And they just watch a show because the show is great, and then there's all these characters on it, they're like, I like that person, and I like that person. Oh, look at this person going through this extremely bi experience, and look at all the nuances to it. So that is a great challenge for people like Sarah and I to take on for the future of the industry.
Yeah, and then just last thing I want to say is there are people protesting all over LA right now because of Kimmel, right? He's a white, cis, het, rich man, and if he can be silenced, all of us can be silenced. So we can fight back by creating art that shows who we are as human beings. We can fight back by advocating not just for ourselves and our own identities, but for the people around us who we love and who we care about in our community who have different identities. And if we refuse to make art that that doesn't include those people, if all of us do that, and whatever that looks like, whatever industry you work in, we'll win, because they need us. Like, we exist, we make up the world, and without us, nothing can happen. So if we keep
Lest
saying
we don't remember where our industry started, which was a bastion for diverse, immigrant, queer people.
as you mentioned, LLC Blush, like, this is where we started, this is who we are, and they might hold a lot of power, but they're small in number and we're mighty, and I just want to make everybody realize that it's a hard time, it's a scary time, but we really can conquer this as long as we keep working together.
And in every single moment in our society since film and television has happened, there is always that movie, there's always that television show, and it continues from generation to generation to generation. That will happen again.
I hope you can all tell just how genuine all four of you are. These panelists, I was a little nervous about how this was all going to come together, but I'm so grateful to sit on a panel with the four of you and to know you. You represent the best of Hollywood in my heart. So thank you all. This concludes our panel, but it doesn't conclude our celebration. We're going to have an after party at Rocco's. So it's just very close by. If you walk out these doors to your left, it's about a 2-minute walk. They'll have food, drinks, so we hope you can continue the celebration with us. This is Bi Visibility Week, and we really want to honor that and celebrate and enjoy ourselves. Also, tomorrow, two amazing nonprofits that are here. You might have learned a little bit about them in the front. LA Bi Task Force and AmBi are hosting a potluck in the park. Starts at noon at the West Hollywood Park. So hopefully you can continue the celebration there. And I really just want to end by thanking our entire crew. I have so many people to thank, so I'm going to do one of those, any thank yous. But I want to thank the city of West Hollywood, Tamoya Marquez, who has been just like fielding 500 emails of mine today, to our incredible mayor, Chelsea Lee Byers, and I want to thank so many of the folks here with Rewrite the BiLine, particularly these panelists, and especially Erin Hammersley, who helped me put together this panel, who put together that incredible video. Thank you. And I also want to thank Taylor McDonald, who greeted you all as you came through as our front of house production. And Alyssa Appleton back here, who has been leading the charge, making sure we stay on time and move forward. And to Pura Vita, which is a plant-based restaurant here in West Hollywood. They gave us a great deal on the yummy appetizers that you had before you came in. So this is the conclusion. Just want to thank you all on behalf of Rewrite the BiLine. Happy Bi Visibility Week, and we look forward to continuing the celebration now.